Wakana watches an anime about three assassins from the Tsukiyono company who were assigned to take down the boss of the Akatsuki syndicate. Their mission leads them to a massive casino where the Akatsuki boss is busy gambling. However, he appears agitated, clearly frustrated that he can't seem to win anything tonight. One of his subordinates even mocks him while enjoying an extravagant dessert, adding insult to injury. Meanwhile, the three female assassins are stationed in a building across from the casino, spying on their target. As they watch, they can't help but grumble about their low salaries, enviously eyeing the luxurious lifestyle of the rich. Their moment of envy is cut short when they remember they're here for work. Arisha suddenly pulls out a bomb she secretly stole from their company president. Without warning the others, Amagi lights the fuse, causing the group to panic. None of them were ready to throw it yet. Komari quickly tries to come up with a solution. She thinks that if she manages to throw the bomb just right, it might actually land inside the casino and take out their target. Unfortunately, things don't go as planned. Komari fumbles and ends up dropping the bomb inside their own building. The resulting explosion sends all three of them flying into the sky in a comedic burst of chaos. Watching the scene unfold, Wakana is completely amazed by the storytelling. Later on, during a break at school, Wakana and Marin watch another episode of Sucom together. Wakana admits that he's really enjoying the anime and even finds the Yakuza characters surprisingly entertaining. Marin then pauses the video when Arisha appears on screen and excitedly announces that she's planning a cosplay as her next. She eagerly reenacts the scene that made her fall in love with Arisha, explaining that it was her reaction in that specific moment that drew her in. Marin then starts talking about the bunny-themed costumes that the characters wear throughout the show. She points out the various versions featured in different episodes and starts to gush about them. Marin says it's perfectly normal to be into that sort of thing. To back up her claim, she points out that plenty of anime and other forms of media use bunny girls as a visual attraction. Wakana begins to imagine a large fan base of bunny girl enthusiasts aside from Marin. Marin adds that bunny girl costumes have even become a popular choice during Halloween. She explains that they're considered a classic look. Suddenly, a spark of inspiration lights up in Wakana's eyes. He's reminded of the timeless beauty of a well-crafted Hina doll. Motivated by the thought, he promises Marin that he'll finish watching the anime by the end of the day so he can start sketching Arisha's costume for her. Marin reminds him not to overwork himself. She then begins to think aloud, wondering if she should book another studio for the photo shoot. The mention of a studio makes Wakana freeze as he remembers the awkward experience they had the last time they booked a hotel studio. To avoid repeating that disaster, Wakana requests to see a picture of the studio first, just to be safe, before Marin makes any reservations. Marin shows Wakana an image sent by their friend Suzuka, which is a photo of a cosplay featuring President Luna. She excitedly shares her plan to rent the same studio where the shot was taken. Then, without warning, Marin offers Wakana some of her Pocky, but instead of handing him a stick, she teasingly offers him the other end of the one already in her mouth. Wakana immediately gets flustered, especially as Marin leans in closer, clearly expecting him to bite the other end. A loud chomp interrupts the tension. Marin casually finishes the rest of the Pocky. Wakana scolds her for teasing him again, while Marin just chuckles at his reaction. A little while later, Wakana becomes fully absorbed in the anime playing on his phone. As he watches, Marin quietly observes him with a fond smile. However, their calm is soon interrupted by a familiar voice. No appears near the stockroom where they're hanging out, apparently searching for Marin. As she rounds the corner of the stairs and spots them, she greets Wakana with a small wave. Marin quickly stands and No scolds her for not replying to her messages. To ease the tension, Marin offers No some Pocky, which works instantly. Marin then tells Wakana that they'll be heading off to lunch, and Wakana casually acknowledges them, his attention already returning to the anime on his phone. On the weekend, Marin rides the train to Wakana's house, nervously reading over the message he sent her the night before. It had been a pleasant surprise since Wakana almost never initiates invites, so she felt giddy and flustered at the thought. But when she arrives, Wakana looks completely disheartened. She soon learns that the reason for his invitation wasn't a date, but to discuss issues he's having with a costume. Marin tries to hide her disappointment, but the odd look on her face gives it away. Wakana doesn't notice. Instead, he walks over to the costume setup and explains the issue. Apparently, the upper part of the costume keeps slipping down no matter what he does. Marin suggests using invisible straps to keep it in place. To help him visualize it, she holds the fabric up where the straps would normally be. Wakana continues explaining that using a strap would also cause the waist area of the costume to sag. Marin then states they often use clips to tighten the fabric and give a costume a more flattering or sexy silhouette. Wakana gives her a slightly displeased look, clearly not thrilled by the idea, but eventually agrees with the plan. This time, she drapes the tailcoat over the main part of the costume and points out that the coat could easily hide the strap. She suggests they head out to buy the straps right away, and Wakana finds himself impressed by her go-getter attitude. Soon after, they arrive at a boutique dress store, where Wakana hands over his sketch to one of the shop attendants. An elderly man studies the drawing, looking at the revealing bunny costume. He looks up at Wakana and with some hesitation, asks who the costume is for. When Wakana replies that it is his, the man looks even more puzzled. However, he quickly collects himself, reminding himself that in today's world, people wear what they want, regardless of gender. He glances back at Wakana's honest, sincere expression and finds no reason to judge. The man smiles and, in an effort to be supportive, tells Wakana he believes he'll look great in it. Just then, Marin walks into the shop and cheerfully asks if Wakana has found the straps yet. The clerk's face goes pale as he suddenly realizes he misunderstood the situation. Marin is clearly amused and teasingly says she wouldn't mind seeing Wakana in a bunny costume. As they browse, the clerk offers a suggestion. He draws on the sketch, showing how corset boning is typically used to hold the shape and provide support. Wakana stares at the man, struck by the realization. But since his reference was from an anime, it hadn't shown how the costume was being held up in the first place. Marin, however, looks disappointed despite the better alternative to her idea. Her reaction confuses both him and the clerk. Wakana, thinking back, realizes that he and Marin had worked on a corset before, but the idea had completely flown over their heads. He sinks to his knees, lamenting that he's become too confident. Back when they first started, he used to research every little thing about costume design. But this time, he jumps straight into the work without reviewing the fundamentals. The clerk smiles kindly and gently tells Wakana that making mistakes is part of the process, and that there's always something to learn from them. When they return home, Wakana wastes no time sewing the corset bones. Wakana then asks Marin to try it on and see if it fits properly. As she heads to change, Wakana waits nervously outside the room. Moments later, he hears Marin's voice calling for help. Panicked, he bursts into the room only to freeze in place. Marin already has the costume on, but there's a problem. Because the outfit is bikini style, her panties are clearly visible beneath it. Wakana immediately bolts out the door and shuts it. From behind the door, Marin begs for help, still unsure of what to do about the issue. The day of the shoot finally arrives and they head to the studio together. When they arrive, they're greeted by a studio filled with casino-themed backdrops and props, a perfect match for their shoot. As Marin announces she'll go change, Wakana takes the opportunity to admire the set. He begins to understand why cosplayers invest so much effort into choosing the right location. The level of attention they give to props and scenery reminds him of how Hina dolls are displayed with ornate stages and detailed setups. A few minutes later, Marin peeks out of the dressing room and asks if Wakana is really okay with the costume, reminding him of the last time they had a revealing shoot. Nervously, Wakana replies that he's fine as long as he reminds himself to focus. Marin smiles and reassures him that she prepared something to help minimize how much skin is exposed. She disappears again, and 5 minutes later, she steps out wearing the full costume, this time with additional stockings layered beneath it. Marin admires herself, but Wakana stares at her, horrified. He does not see how this helps minimize skin exposure. She grins and pulls gently at what appears to be her skin. They begin the shoot, but Wakana finds it nearly impossible to concentrate. He keeps getting distracted by how revealing the costume appears, despite Marin's efforts to cover up. Marin excitedly suggests they switch to the Chinese-themed backdrop and runs off toward it. Unaware of how suggestive her movements look, she only makes Wakana more uncomfortable. Desperate to collect himself, Wakana puts down his phone and walks over to a nearby wall, silently pleading for focus. Eventually, he calls for a short break. Marin uses the opportunity to review the photos and is thrilled with the results. She begins chatting about another bunny costume she's thinking of wearing for an upcoming Halloween party. She also brings up a different character's stockings and how the net stockings look different from other net stockings. Wakana admits that he's not well-versed in net stockings and doesn't really get what makes them special. Marin, not missing a beat, pulls out her phone and begins showing him examples. Marin then casually mentions that she's going to the Halloween party with her friends and invites Wakana to come along. She even suggests he dress up too. The night of the party arrives and everyone is in costume, ready for a night of karaoke and fun. Marin is with her usual group of friends and Wakana tags along wearing a bunny mascot suit. Girls express relief that they have guys with them, since if it were just them, they'd probably get hit on all night. At one point, Marin offers Wakana a turn at karaoke. He politely refuses, saying he only knows the theme song to Flower Princess. The group takes more photos and Marin tries to pull Wakana into the frame, but he declines. As they chat, one of Marin's friends compliments her, saying she's heard people think Marin is cute. This disappoints one of the guys in the group. He had cross-dressed for Halloween and was hoping to be the center of attention. Wakana listens quietly, wondering why he came. He'd hoped to meet other cosplayers and learn something new, but Marin's group isn't made up of cosplayers. Soon the conversation shifts to Wakana. The others are surprised to learn that not only did he make Marin's costume, but he also did her makeup. The cross-dressing guy asks Wakana how he learned all of that, commenting that it's unusual for a guy to be into sewing and makeup. That hits Wakana hard. It brings back memories of how he used to be teased and ostracized for his interests. But another guy in the group speaks up, saying that nowadays it's actually pretty normal. His own brother is in the beauty industry. Murray then proudly adds that Wakana's family makes Hina dolls, which earns him admiration from everyone, especially the cross-dresser, who says he's always admired Hina doll artisans. For the first time in a long while, Wakana is speechless, not from shame, but from being accepted. Just as he begins to relax, Noah asks while singing if he's dating Marin. Wakana spits out his drink through the hole in his costume, soda spraying out just as Naoto's question settles into the room. Everyone turns toward him, eyes wide with curiosity. Panicking, Wakana quickly denies dating Marin. He stumbles over his words as his face burns with embarrassment. Marin steps in, coaxing him out of the room, insisting he get out of his costume since it's now soaked with soda. While Wakana tries to clean himself up in the bathroom, he starts to think more deeply about their relationship. Despite how often they spend time together, he convinces himself that it will never lead to anything romantic. They're just friends, and Marin is way out of his league. Outside, Marin wipes the soda off the mascot head, her hands working absent-mindedly. Even though Wakana's reaction wasn't unexpected, a sting of disappointment settles in her chest. It is true that they aren't dating, but something about how quickly and firmly he denied the idea bothers her. She wonders if Wakana might actually dislike her or find the idea of dating her uncomfortable. Before she can finish cleaning, two unfamiliar men approach and ask to speak with her. When Wakana finishes cleaning up, he's surprised to find the hallway empty. A glance down the corridor reveals Marin speaking to two men he doesn't recognize. His mind jumps to the worst-case scenario. He assumes they're hitting on her. He rushes toward them, pushing past the blonde man and grabbing his hand, insisting that he'll take Marin's place instead. The two men stare at him, clearly confused. After a few seconds, the misunderstanding becomes obvious, and they try to explain that hitting on Marin is far from their agenda. Marin explains that they're actually her hairstylists, Hikaru and Manabu, and had simply recognized her from a distance. Hikaru had noticed the state of Marin's hair and couldn't resist scolding her for neglecting it. Marin grumbles while Manabu teases Hikaru, calling him an old hack, sparking another round of banter between the two stylists. Realization hits Wakana like a brick. Retreating into his mascot costume again, he sulks in silence as Marin tries to cheer him up, but Wakana is too buried in self-loathing to hear her. Despite his guilt, Marin can't help but smile. She remembers how he stepped in without hesitation to protect her, even if it was a misunderstanding. Quietly and with a blush, she leans in and plants a soft kiss on the mask. Just then, Wakana turns to her, afraid that he might have made her mad. He thinks he heard something, a strange sound like a click of a tongue. Marin freezes, realizing the sound must have been her kiss. Flushed red, she storms off, refusing to answer. Just before returning to the karaoke room, Marin sneezes. The next day at school, their teacher announces that Marin will be absent. The class begins to whisper, surprised by the news. It's rare for her to skip a day. Meanwhile, Wakana quietly types out a message on his phone, concerned about her health. However, Marin doesn't reply to Wakana's message, causing him to grow increasingly anxious and distracted throughout the day. His focus remains fixed on his unanswered chat, unable to concentrate on anything else during class. With each passing minute, his worry deepens. Eventually, he makes a decision that he'll visit her home even before school ends. By the time Marin opens her apartment door, she's shocked to see Wakana standing outside. He explains that he couldn't just leave her alone, especially knowing that she lives by herself without her parents around. Concerned she might not have access to food or medicine, he confesses that he faked being sick and left school early just to check on her. Before Marin can say anything in response, her knees give out and she collapses into his arms. Panicked, Wakana quickly carries her back inside her apartment. Once inside, he realizes she's drenched in sweat and probably needs to change. Marin weakly mumbles that he can pick something out from the laundry basket nearby. He shuffles awkwardly toward the basket. To his dismay, the first thing he sees is an anime graphic t-shirt. He quickly digs deeper and finds a plain, long-sleeved shirt. In the kitchen, he lays out the ingredients he had bought and begins preparing chicken porridge. Once it's ready, he gently helps Marin eat by offering her a spoonful. She struggles with the first bite, making Wakana worry he might have served it too hot. He blows on the second spoonful and feeds it to her, relieved when she's finally able to eat it, and even gives him a small compliment. As Marin slowly takes another bite, tears begin to well up in her eyes. She admits that she had been scared earlier, unable to move and with nothing to eat. Wakana's heart softens. Seeing her this vulnerable confirms he made the right decision. As she gestures for more food, he smiles and continues feeding her, quietly glad he could help in any way. After finishing her meal, he gives her the medicine he bought. Marin lays back down and Wakana reassures her that she'll feel better once it kicks in. As he prepares to clean up the kitchen, Marin quietly thanks him for checking on her. She then asks if he can stay with her for a bit longer. Smiling warmly, Wakana agrees. Later, with her fever subsiding, Wakana tells her he's made extra porridge in case she gets hungry again. Just then, the doorbell rings, followed by Noah's voice calling out from the hallway she's brought some friends to check on Marin too. Wakana instantly freezes. If Noah sees him here, she might jump to the wrong conclusion and assume they're secretly dating. In a panic, he rushes out onto Marin's veranda, telling her he'll hide there until everyone leaves. Marin watches as Wakana rushes toward the veranda, wondering why he can't just stay and hang out with her friends. Unfortunately, he ends up catching a cold himself due to the chilly air. Days later, Marin and Wakana visit the aquarium, taking advantage of a nearby cosplay convention to shoot in more casual, scenic spots. Marin is once again dressed as Shizuka, this time in a different outfit. Rather than limiting themselves to the crowded cosplay event area, they decide to explore and shoot around the city. Marin's excitement grows as they make their way through the aquarium. She runs off to the penguin and otter section in hopes of seeing some cute sea creatures. However, she suddenly stops when she catches a glimpse of another cosplayer in a familiar outfit. As the girl turns around, Marin recognizes the character immediately. The girl is cosplaying Subaru from Cosmic Idols, a dating sim she regularly plays. Marin explains to Wakana that all the idols in the game are potential love interests, but players must keep their relationships a secret or risk a game over. She gushes over the accuracy of the cosplayer's uniform and is impressed by how well she pulled off the look. But something seems off. Marin notices the cosplayer fidgeting and asks if anything is wrong. The cosplayer, looking slightly flustered, admits that the hook on her skirt popped off and likely fell somewhere along the way. Without hesitation, both Marin and Wakana kneel down and begin searching the ground, reassuring her that they'll help her find it. It doesn't take long before they locate the missing piece. The cosplayer, relieved, thanks them and introduces herself as Emine, her cosplayer name. Marin and Wakana introduce themselves in return, casually mentioning that Wakana makes all of Marin's costumes. Emine is surprised that they so freely revealed their real names, but warms up quickly when Marin asks for a photo together. Emine initially agrees, but then glances down and hesitates. Realizing that her costume is incomplete, she declines the photo and says she has to leave. After all, she believes it's her duty as a cosplayer to uphold accuracy. Wakana steps in, offering to fix the skirt for her. He pulls out a compact sewing kit, explaining that he carries it around since Marin tends to have wardrobe emergencies. Emine hesitates but eventually agrees. However, Wakana freezes when he realizes he can't enter the women's restroom to assist. That's when Emine calmly tells them it's fine since they can just use the men's. Emine casually explains that he's actually male. Both Wakana and Marin stare at him, speechless, as they hadn't even considered that he might be cross-dressing. At the venue, Emine and Wakana head straight to the dressing room where Wakana begins mending the skirt while Emine touches up his makeup. Marin, meanwhile, explores the convention floor, happily browsing through the merchandise. As Wakana repairs the skirt, he keeps glancing at Emine. It's hard to believe he's actually male. From the carefully styled makeup to the natural way he carries himself, everything about his appearance exudes femininity. Wakana's eyes briefly shift to Emine's makeup pouch, where a small bottle resembling liquid glue catches his attention. The item stands out as unusual, especially compared to the usual cosmetics. He starts to wonder if that's part of what completes Emine's look. The thought lingers, pulling Wakana into speculation about how and where something like glue might be used in cosplay. His curiosity begins to distract him from the task at hand. He loses track of his stitching pattern, his hands momentarily pausing while his mind runs through possibilities. Emine eventually notices the shift in his energy and quietly asks if he's alright. Wakana startles, snapping back to focus and quickly redirects his attention to sewing. Meanwhile, Marin runs into Suzuka, who's also attending the convention. They greet each other with excitement, immediately reminiscing about the success of the previous shoot. Suzuka compliments Marin's Shizuka cosplay, expressing genuine admiration for how well the other outfit turned out. Marin is delighted to hear that Suzuka knows about Slippery Girls. Even more surprising, Suzuka admits that it was Marin's first cosplay of Shizuka that got her interested in the franchise in the first place. The admission fills Marin with pride. The conversation shifts to a current event in the game and soon after to Marin's costume itself. Suzuka examines the craftsmanship, complimenting the level of accuracy. Then Suzuka recalls how the character Shizuka is known for not wearing undergarments and how Marin had committed to mimicking thigh markings in the past. Suzuka nervously attempts to ask if Marin has followed that detail again. Marin, without hesitation, lifts her hakama to reveal a pair of modest shorts, explaining that it's still a public convention. Suzuka panics and quickly urges her to lower it again before someone sees. Later in the day, Marin reunites with Wakana and Emine in one of the rest areas of the convention. Emine thanks them again, sharing that this is actually his first time attending an event like this. When he smiles, Marin melts as his expression is a perfect recreation of Subaru's soft and charming demeanor. Wakana, still curious about the earlier discovery, finally mentions the glue container he saw. Amine confirms it's liquid glue and demonstrates how he uses it to subtly stick parts of his wig to his face. The glue helps conceal more angular features, softening his look and giving him a more feminine silhouette. He explains that it's a reliable trick, especially in photography, and shows them a gallery of his past cosplays on his phone. Marin and Wakana are amazed by the results. MNA's transformation into female characters is convincing on every level. The attention to detail is meticulous, and it's hard to believe someone so effortlessly feminine is actually male underneath. MNA shyly asks if his posing style looks unnatural, still unsure of how close he is to portraying women accurately. Marin assures him that he's doing great, even showing him one of her own photos for comparison. Wakana scrolls further through the album, pausing at a particular image. The costume reveals a convincingly natural-looking chest. He stares in disbelief. It doesn't look photoshopped at all. MNA casually explains that there are different types of attachable chests used in cosplay and offers to show them. Marin lights up with excitement. Wakana, however, immediately regrets looking too closely, his face frozen in silent panic. Amine leads Marin and Wakana to a section of the store where various detachable chests are displayed. Both of them are amazed at how realistic the piece he shows them looks, from the skin texture to the natural curve of the form. Amine explains that it's difficult to match the exaggerated proportions often seen in anime, so she relies on these to complete the illusion. Marin nods in agreement, admitting that the character she's portraying has a rather large chest size, one that even real girls struggle to replicate. Amine adds that these are especially helpful when the character's outfit shows a bit of skin. To demonstrate, he casually straps one of the chests onto Wakana. Marin gasps in delight, her eyes sparkling with mischief. Without hesitation, she reaches out and starts fondling it. Wakana blushes in embarrassment, stepping back with his hands covering his chest. Unbothered, Amine resumes the store tour, guiding them through rows of cosplay supplies, wigs, lenses, adhesives, and makeup. Many of the tools and accessories are things they've never seen before. Curious, Wakana turns to Amine and asks what he's most particular about when portraying female characters. The question catches Amine off guard, even more so when Wakana steps closer and starts discussing makeup techniques, since he has experience making girls look like men and wonders how it works the other way around. After a moment of hesitation, Amine gives in and begins sharing his process. He explains that he likes to emphasize his eyes, using liquid liner to draw a subtle pouch underneath them to make them look rounder and larger. Marin perks up at the tip, admitting she's tried that trick herself but often messes it up. Wakana notices that all of Amine's makeup is pink. Amine explains that since Subaru's motif is pink, he wanted to stay consistent with the character's theme. He then motions towards a small orange concealer and tells them it's an essential item. Wakana assumes it's for hiding eye bags, and Amine agrees, but for him, it's actually for concealing his 5 o'clock shadow. The reminder that Amine is actually a guy momentarily stuns Marin. She had forgotten, distracted by how cute he looked. As they explore the store further, Marin and Wakana begin picking up items for themselves, encouraged by Amine's tips. Wakana, in particular, is absorbed in the new discoveries, even wondering if some could be used for Hina doll making. One strange-looking item catches his eye, and he curiously asks what it's for. Amine admits that he's not a professional when it comes to crafting, but he knows the odd tools and materials Wakana pointed out are mostly used to make weapons, props, or armor pieces. He then leads him to another section of the store lined with character wigs. He points out his own, sharing that it came pre-styled with a detachable hairpiece. Wakana also learns that many cosplayers buy ready-made costumes. Amine confesses that he does the same, admitting that he lacks the skills to sew or style wigs himself. He's just thankful that cosplay shops exist. Without them, he wouldn't be able to portray the characters he loves. Wakana agrees, since cosplay should be accessible for everyone to enjoy. Later, outside the convention, they start taking photos. Marin beams at the shots, especially since Amine managed to perfectly embody Subaru's elegant Ice Queen aura in front of fans. Mid-discussion, Marin's face tape suddenly snaps loose. She yelps and rushes over to Wakana, begging him to fix it. Amine smiles at the sight, quietly admiring how close and natural they are around each other. As he watches two girls cosplaying fellow idols from the same game approach, Marin instantly recognizes their characters and practically squeals. The girls ask for a photo with Amine, who cheerfully agrees but also politely informs them that he's actually a guy cosplaying as Subaru, just to make sure they're still comfortable. Instead of reacting badly, the girls look surprised for a moment, then genuinely impressed. They gush over how convincing he looks. With everyone's approval, Wakana offers to take their photo. The result turns out great, and the girls thank Wakana with bright smiles. They also compliment Wakana's outfit and are surprised when he explains it's actually just his normal clothes. Marin watches the scene unfold with delight. thinking that it looks just like a sweet moment from a slice-of-life anime. She declares this convention as one of her best and quickly rushes in to get photos with everyone too. They all spend time taking pictures, both pose ones inspired by the game and spontaneous, candid shots full of laughter and energy. They even end up joined by a cosplayer and a photographer for more shots. When it's time to part, their new friends thank them for the memories and fun. Taking a break afterward, Emine wonders aloud if he's being noticed more because Subaru ranks second in the last idol poll. Marin quickly corrects him, saying it's because of how cute he looks as Subaru. She then asks if Subaru was the reason Emine started cosplaying. Emine explains it all began when his sister, inspired by a drag show, asked to dress him up. When he saw himself fully transformed in wig and makeup, he couldn't believe the reflection staring back. Soon enough, Emine found himself asking his sister for clothes and makeup tips. From there, he gradually expanded into cosplay. He's thankful to come from an open-minded family. His mother was supportive from the beginning and even cheered him on in his cosplay journey. Emine goes on to admit that growing up, he was often teased for not being tall or having a deep voice. He used to hate those parts of himself. But once he discovered cosplay, something shifted. It gave him a way to feel proud of how he looked. Slowly, he began to love himself more. The confidence it gave him helped him open up to people, make friends, and genuinely enjoy life. He shares a story from when he first started college. A girl had taken an interest in him romantically. One day, when she visited his apartment, she opened his closet and saw it full of dresses. She immediately assumed he was living with another girl. Emine tried to explain the truth that he was a crossdresser and cosplayer, but instead of understanding, she told him to quit the hobby. Though he agreed at first, he eventually realized how wrong that was and broke up with her. The ending stuns Wakana, but Marin is moved to tears. She cries over how cruel someone could be to ask a person they love to give up something so meaningful. Sniffling, she admits she doesn't understand how people can be so cold-hearted. Emine gives her a small, grateful smile and thanks her for feeling so deeply about his story. He reassures her that he's no longer hurt by it. Cosplay gave him confidence and a way to love himself, and because he continues to choose it, he's doing just fine. Marin blows her nose loudly, prompting both Emine and Wakana to smile at her unfiltered reaction. Emine then admits that he had been wary of them at first, especially Wakana. He was worried Wakana might see him as some sort of weirdo. Wakana quickly responds that he would never think that and definitely wouldn't say something so mean. Emine smiles at his sincerity and apologizes for ever doubting his intentions. He admits this has been one of the best days he's had in a long time. So many people accepted him even after finding out he was a guy in costume. It reminded him that there are people out there who can embrace him for who he is, and that he doesn't need to assume the worst. As they part ways at the station with Emine finally out of his costume, Wakana and Marin could not get their eyes off him at all. They find themselves quietly admiring his natural looks. After he leaves, they both admit that Emine is, without a doubt, an attractive man. One day, Wakana calls his grandfather and invites him to have lunch together. At the table, Kaoru casually asks if Wakana has plans for the afternoon. Wakana confirms that he'll be going out soon. After the meal, he heads straight to the location of Marin's photo shoot. When he arrives, he sees Marin posing effortlessly in front of the camera, fully in her element and surrounded by a small crew. He asks one of the female staff members if it's okay for him to be there. She smiles and assures him it's fine. Marin had informed them ahead of time that he'd be dropping by. She adds that it's pretty common for amateur models to bring their boyfriends along. Wakana doesn't quite register that the woman just referred to him as Marin's boyfriend. Instead, his attention shifts to Marin's outfit and he expresses concern about how heavy and warm it must be. The woman explains that all of Marin's outfits for the shoot are winter-themed. Since fashion magazines shoot their spreads 3 to 4 months in advance, models often end up wearing seasonal clothing completely out of sync with the current weather. The woman adds that Marin is always a pleasure to work with, as almost everything looks good on her, and she carries herself with such ease. Wakana continues to observe, noticing how different she looks when modeling compared to when she's cosplaying. The woman goes on to say that Marin has been taking on more shoots lately. Wakana recalls that Marin had mentioned wanting to buy a DSLR camera, so this is probably how she's earning the money for it. She also reveals that Marin is one of their readers' favorite models. Everyone enjoys working with her, not just because she's photogenic, but because she's a genuinely unique and fun presence on set. Wakana finds himself quietly captivated by the version of Marin he's seeing today. The woman suddenly leans in and asks if he can convince Marin to work exclusively with him, still under the impression that he's her boyfriend. Wakana panics a little and quickly clarifies that they're not dating, they're just classmates. He tries to elaborate, saying that their relationship is based on money, which only confuses her more. Soon after, Marin wraps up her shoot and changes into something more comfortable, yet still stylish. The woman comments that her outfit looks a bit more dressed up than usual. Marin happily shares that she's heading to a birthday party today and is super excited about it. She and Wakana are stopping by to pick up the cake before celebrating. As they leave, the woman waves goodbye, confused but intrigued. She realizes it's not Marin's birthday this month, so she assumes the two are secretly celebrating Wakana's birthday together, just the two of them. Later in Marin's apartment, the two are in Marin's room, completely decked out in decorations. Marin has gone all out for the birthday of her favorite character, Shizuka, even making masks of Shizuka's face for them to wear. The room is practically a shrine. She covers her Shizuka plushies and pillows, runs her hands over her merch, and squeals about how much she loves the character. Wakana sits awkwardly by the table, unsure of what to make of the passionate display. But as he watches her, he starts to reflect. This is the Marin he knows on a daily basis. The Marin earlier today was completely different. However, he tells himself that those are just two sides of Marin, and Marin is amazing for being able to have so many beautiful versions of herself. After Marin finishes her over-the-top declaration of love for Shizuka, she asks Wakana to bring out the cake. As she looks around for a place to rest her Shizuka mask, she decides to stick it on a bottle of Fanta. Wakana stares, baffled at how she even came up with that idea.